handsome ones. Today we are talking about body shape. So in order to participate in this, you will need a tape measure, a calculator, a piece of paper or something to write it down, and a pen. So you might need to pause the video now to go and get all of those things, or you can use the calculator on your phone and then store all of the information on your phone. Now, when it comes to taking measurements, I do recommend a flexible tape measure and one that has both centimetres and inches on it. So this one here, I've got centimetres, which is the metric system on one side, and then I've got inches, which is the imperial system on the other, and they relate to each other. So if I look at, say, 50 centimetres, then I turn it over, and that is just over 19.5 inches. So it's really easy to do the conversion. So before we get started on the measuring, I just want to say one thing about your body shape. It is my considered opinion that your body shape is more important than your size. Now, as women, we tend to focus a lot more on our size, but in actual fact, your shape, because it's something that is internal within you and it is about proportions, your shape is actually a bigger factor in how a garment fits on you and how an outfit looks altogether. So just keep that in mind. So let's get started with the measurements. There's 3 measurements really that you need to take. And the first one is your bust. So when it comes to your bust, you need to take it at the largest part of your bust here. Okay, write that down. And then your waist, you're obviously taking it at the smallest part of your waist. Yeah, write that down. And then with your hips, you take it at the largest part of your hips. There you go. So you've got those 3 measurements. Make sure you've got those written down, and you need to refer to them as we now go on to your proportions. So there are 5 key body shapes that we're going to be looking at, and you're going to be referring to your measurements to actually work out which is your body shape. You might already know what it is. This might just be a confirmation, or you might find some information today that makes you rethink the shape that you thought you were. So I'm actually going to do this on a split screen now. I have actually just made up some numbers for each of these calculations. So I've given you an example and you'll be able to see it on the screen as we're going along. Now, I've just got my notes with me now because there's a lot of numbers and ratios that I want to make sure that I get everything right. So the first body shape that we're going to look at is the rectangle. And that really gives a connotation of being straight up and down. And it's not really. There is actually a little bit of shape, but it's just a very gentle slope. So there are 2 calculations that you need to do to find out if you're a rectangle. So you take your waist circumference, divide it by your hip circumference, find out what that is, and then multiply that by 100. Write that down. And then clear your calculator. Second calculation, take your waist circumference again, and then your bust circumference. So divide your waist circumference by your bust circumference. Find out what that is, multiply by 100. So if you get a value that is greater than 70% for either of them or for both of them separately, then you are a rectangle. And a rectangle represents 45% of the population. I'm actually a rectangle. So that's my body shape. How did you go? All right, next one, inverted triangle. So this is really, as it says, it's broader at the shoulders and at the bust, and then slimmer at the hips. So there's really only one calculation that you need to do for this one. So you take the circumference of your bust and divide it by the circumference of your hips. find out what that is, multiply by 100. And if you get a value that is greater than 130%, then you are an inverted triangle. This represents 15% of the population. How did you go? Okay. Next one is the pair. This is alternatively also referred to as the triangle. So some references are more to the use of shapes, of shape names rather than fruit names, for example. So a pear is really more of an old-fashioned name, whereas I think it's more triangle these days. So obviously wider at the hips. So once again, there's one calculation that you need to do for this. So circumference of your hips divided by the circumference of your bust. So it's really just a flip of what you did for the inverted triangle. And then once again, if you get a value of a greater than 130%, then you are a triangle. And this body type represents 20% of the population. Next one, number 4 is the apple, and this is also referred to as the circle shape. So once again, you'll need to do 2 calculations, just like you did with the rectangle. So take the circumference of your waist and divide it by the circumference of your hip, then multiply by 100. Record what that is. Clear your calculator. Second calculation, circumference of your waist divided by the circumference of your bust. Find out what that is, then multiply by 100. And if you get a value for either or both of those, then of greater than 80%, then you are an apple or a circle. And this represents 12% of the population. Okay, so the 5th shape is the hourglass shape, and another 2 calculations to do here. So circumference of your waist divided by the circumference of your hip, multiplied by 100. Find out what that is, write that down. Clear your calculator. Next calculation, circumference of your waist divided by circumference of your bust, multiplied by 100. And if you get a value of less than 70% for either or both of those, then your body type is the hourglass. And this represents 8% of the population. 8%. Like, it is touted as being the ideal female form. What about the other 92% of us? So the reality is that the other body shapes, there's a higher proportion of all of those than there is of the hourglass. I'm also going to list down below all of those calculations again. So if you need to refer to them, then you can. So now that you actually know what your body shape is, hopefully that will inform you a lot more when you're actually thinking about getting dressed and what individual items work for you, and then also what the overall look can do to flatter you. So I just wanted to say a few caveats about all of this with body shape. The most important thing is to accentuate the positive. We all have something that we like about ourselves. So think about just one feature of your body that you really like. So for me, for example, I really like my neck. I actually think I do have a nice neck, and that is really what has influenced me to have shorter hair and then to actually wear a lot more neck scarves and have jumpers that are a little bit higher, so that then my neck is actually a feature. I tend to just wear short necklaces because I really do just want to emphasize my neck. So think about the one feature of your body that you really like, and that is something that will then influence what it is that you're going to be wearing and buying and putting together, so that that feature is on show. The next thing is to accept your limitations. We all have them, okay? So for me, I just know that I don't really suit a lot of tight things. It doesn't seem to be enough of a contrast for me. And I also don't really suit too much oversized because I can just get lost in them. I need a little bit of proportion balance. So that is a driver for me in a lot of what I do, in a lot of how I dress, is I like simplicity and I like to be seen, but I need to make sure that there is a little bit of a balance with everything that I'm wearing. So now that you've thought about what your key feature is, think about the one part of your body that you maybe think is a flaw. Just one, okay? I just said one positive, now I'm saying one flaw. So for me, it's my tummy. And yes, I can have had 3 children, but I can't blame my babies for that because I remember even when I was 12, lamenting that I didn't have a flat stomach. So this is what drives me a lot when I'm putting outfits together, is I'm thinking about my stomach and how I don't want people to know about how round it is. So that is something that I'm constantly trying to just hide or cover up. And that is actually what has led me to a lot of the choices that I have made in my outfits. Now, with all of this talk, it can get a little bit overwhelming about where to go, how to navigate it. So I really am trying to keep everything super simple to give you something to get started with. And I think if you take a classic approach to purchasing items and then putting outfits together, it can really help. So I've just got 12 items here that are very classic in nature. We've seen them for years and years and years on all sorts of people, men and women. Most of them are unisex, apart from the skirts and the dresses, but there's a lot of them that are unisex and they look good on everybody. They suit most people's skin tone, most people's shape, and then there is an individual way in which you can style it. But when you wear those items, because they are so classic, it's like everybody can wear them. So I'm just going to put them on for you now and run through them with you. So some of them actually go together in an outfit, and then I'll just talk you through each of the items. Okay, so I've put all of these together in an outfit for you just so that you can see how they do fit together. So a classic tan leather belt. I do actually think leather is the way to go. I got this in an op shop. It didn't cost me a fortune. I just got incredibly lucky. But this is just a wonderful belt. I like wide belts, but you can actually have a thin belt for you. That would be fine. And a classic trench. They have been around for years and years and years. They're unisex. They just look good with anything. Like you can dress it down here with jeans, or you can even wear it over an opera dress and it would be fine. But I just love the design and the cut of a classic trench. And I think when you do see these classic items, automatically, it's almost like it just registers that that is classic and they just look good on everybody. And then also a Breton top, which I just think is the best thing since sliced bread as well. It's just such a clever design. Once again, unisex and looks good on everybody. A pair of wide leg jeans. So I do think that skinny jeans can be a little bit problematic, whereas I think that wide leg jeans just look good on everybody. Everybody looks better in wide leg than what they do in skinnies, for sure. And then a pair of white sneakers. They have just become such a thing that you can wear them with just about anything. And it's a really good place to start. So the next 2 items would be a classic white shirt. Been around for ages, so many people wear them, men wear them as well, and they really do go with everything. They can be dressed up, dressed down, worn casually, formally. It really doesn't work. You can't go wrong with a classic white shirt. Just find the one that works for you. And then I also find just having a really structured midi length skirt. So obviously the colour here is not classic at all, but the style of it is just amazing. It's so well constructed. It's got these darts here and it just really gives it a very definite A-line shape. So that would actually be something that would be worthwhile investing in. So showing the versatility of this white shirt, and once again with a leather skirt. So I really like this leather skirt because it's so firm and it's got the structure, doesn't need ironing. Now this is a mini, which might not work for everybody, but you can just find the length that suits you. I am actually on the lookout for a midi length, but I have in the past had knee length leather skirts and they're just fantastic. They are classic, they are firm, they're ageless, they're timeless, they will stand the test of time, and it'll be well worth the investment that you spend on them. And the next item of clothing, once again with the same white linen shirt, but a really nice tailored pair of pants. Get the best that you can afford. These are from Q and they're really well designed. They're high-waisted and they just have a beautiful shape. The fabric is such high quality. They're beautifully constructed and they just go with a lot of things. I also recommend getting a silk scarf. You can get some really nice polyester ones and they can fool you. And as long as they're nice and comfortable, that's fine. I just don't like anything scratchy around my neck. But this is a silk scarf that I actually got in an op shop in Paris. So even then you don't have to spend a lot of money, but just something with really nice, bright, happy colours with a nice sheen to it, a reasonable size so that you've actually then got some options as well. But this is a really classic accessory that you can use with a lot of different individual items to just bring an outfit together. And last but not least, an LBD. You just can't go wrong. This is an item that has stood the test of time and pretty much everybody looks good in one iteration of it. So just find the one that works for you, that flatters your shape. And also a structured bag. I really like leather bags and this one is just fantastic. It's got a really definite structure. I don't really like black, so this is really my version of a black, but I really like this bag because I can wear it straight like this. I can shorten the handle. And to be honest, this is the way that I wear it the most, which is crossbody. But these 12 items here are really quite classic. I could have extended it to 20 or 25, but I just really wanted to keep it simple, just so that you have a starting point of how to actually build a classic wardrobe that will actually fit your body shape. You can tweak these to suit you. And because they are so classic, when you wear them, the classic nature of them just really makes it a lot more versatile than thinking about what works for your body shape with what's around at the moment. So the driving force when you're actually getting dressed should be thinking about how can I flatter my figure. And if you do that, it will actually drive a lot of the right decisions. If you consider your body shape in all of this, then it really can help. So I find for me that as I'm getting older, I just can't get away with buying cheaper clothing. I can no longer go into really any of those fast fashion stores where the teenage girls go into or the 20-somethings go into. I have a much higher requirement these days of good quality fabric, good quality design, good construction, and I am prepared to pay a little bit more or to be patient and wait for the sales or to hunt the op shops so that I can actually get them at a cheaper price. And because I am more of a classic dresser, I know that when I do get them, they will last a lot longer as well. And this has really been something that I've found out the hard way, that viscose stain just looks terrible on me. Anything that's too shiny, that's just poorly constructed, it just highlights my round tummy and it just makes me feel horrible. So, there are some decisions with all of this that you have to make. And I find too that by not being a slave to fashion, by actually having a filtering process so that when things are in fashion, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what I wear. I put it through my filter and I make sure that I'm only getting involved in those trends that work for me. So for example, with the cutout trend, well, no, not interested. I'm just not interested in it at all. So I've done it very subtly. Like I've got one dress which has just got a tiny little cutout here, another one which has got a cutout at the back. So it's all done very subtly, but none of this is on show. So I do find that as I'm going on in my life, that I'm being a lot more discerning about what I'm wearing and what I'm buying, what I'm putting on my body, and what I'm actually getting involved in terms of dress. So if you like my content and you want to see more, please like and subscribe and click on all notifications. Please put in a comment below and we can actually have a conversation about body shape. What have been your challenges and what have you found out? And I look forward to seeing you next week, and we're going to be talking about your colours. It's a little bit more of a workshop sort of scenario, so I really do hope that you will join me then. Bye.